Hey, what's up, guys? This is Rush with More Digital Media and Live Casting and the Time Group. And we're out here today to talk to Scotty Sanders, who's the author of this great book called Quest of the Keys. Scotty, tell me a little bit about the Quest of the Keys. What does it do?
Well, there's an interesting story behind it. So this is a fantasy fiction book or a novel that teaches character development and really geared toward teenagers. But it's an interesting story behind how it started. I've been teaching what I call the 8 Keys to Success for many years, corporate environments, businesses, nonprofits. But I had my creative director one day said, that's such good teaching. What if we took this teaching, these 8 keys, and we put it into a novel form that we could teach the next generation? And every time you hear one of those things, you're like, should I do something like that? I'd never written fantasy fiction. I'd written books before. And so we really thought about it and said, let's go for it. And so actually, that's how it started, was taking those 8 keys and then incorporating them into a novel that could connect with younger people, because they connect with stories, they connect with character stuff. So
Yeah.
they may not get into the principles, but they want to know what's going to end up happening to Declan or to
Yeah.
Camberly and so forth.
Yeah, awesome. It's an amazing book. Now, tell me a little bit of how it works exactly. How does it break down? It's an education curriculum, right?
It is an education curriculum. Actually, the book itself can be a standalone, and a lot of people have just read the book, and it's got some didactic elements in there. At the
Okay.
end of each chapter, it's got certain questions they can ask to go a little bit deeper on these different 8 keys.
Okay.
And the keys are set up, and we call it a success framework, and it's broken down into kind of 2 different parts. So you've got these 8 keys, and so in the first part, what we call would be intrinsic characteristics
Okay.
that we really all have. I think with all of us, we have this desire to live a life of significance or purpose. So we want to help people to discover their purpose.
Okay.
But also, people are passionate about certain things, so we want to help unlock that passion. And also, persistence on how to have grit and not give up when it's easy to quit, right? And then the other one would be you have a certain potential within you. So those would be what we'd call the intrinsic characteristics. So
Okay.
that's part of it. So we want to cultivate that in individuals. And the second part of that would be we want to develop what we call the extrinsic life skills. How to problem solve, how to prioritize, how to plan. And then we think, and it's underrated, good people skills. How to have a conversation, how to listen, how to ask good questions.
Okay. And going off of that, what inspired you? What point in life what inspired you to take that leap and decide to create this program?
Yeah. Well, here's a little bit of the background. I've always had a heart to encourage and empower people. My purpose in life is to encourage and empower others to live, lead, and finish well. But I also recognize as I get a little bit older, how can I impact the next generation? So it was really hard to really pour into the next generation, but somewhat the incubation of it happening. I was working with a very large charter school system, one of the largest in the country, and I was going around working with principals and superintendents and some of their high-level leadership. But when I'd go into schools and I would ask the principal, I know you're doing character education, but how's that working with your students? And it seemed to be this disconnect. They would say almost like this wink of, yeah, we're kind of doing it, but our students don't really get it. It could be the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Great stuff, I love it, but not necessarily connecting well with kids. So I started thinking, how could we take certain principles and teach it and speak in a language that connects with the next generation? And that's a story form. They get
Yeah.
into the characters in the story. So that was really kind of how it started. I saw a need and an opportunity and a passion I had and put that together.
Okay. And when did you discover your purpose? Like, you said this was your purpose, but what time in life?
Yeah, there's kind of a story behind that one as well and everything, but here's one of the things I remember, and it's one of those, honestly, kind of an embarrassing story. My kids sometimes don't like for me to tell it. They say, Dad, it makes it sound like you were not a good athlete. And I grew up in a family that a bunch of people played sports. I grew up playing every ball imaginable.
Okay.
And so in the 9th grade in my basketball, and I went out for the basketball team, and I played every sport and always made it and done well. But in my 9th grade year, I got cut from the basketball team.
Okay.
The coach basically said, you're not good enough to make the team. A couple weeks passed, and I got to tell you, I was pretty embarrassed and humiliated about that. All my buddies were going off to practice, and here I am catching the bus to go home. But a couple of weeks after I got cut, the coach asked to meet with me, which I thought was kind of strange. And he said, Scotty, I want to talk to you about something. you know, you're not a real good basketball player. You don't shoot particularly well. You don't rebound well. You're not a good dribbler. But he said, I've been watching our team practice here the last couple of weeks, and it's been terrible. And I asked some of our key players, what's going on? What's happened? And they each said, Coach, we need Scotty back on the team. And I said, well, why do we need him on the team? He's not a good basketball player. Because he makes everybody else on the team better. He challenges, he encourages us. And that was an insight at that moment in the 9th grade. What my real gift is to make other people better. Not me being the best, but how can I make others better than what they are?
And how cool is that? How cool is
Yeah.
that to have that realization that you want to make other people better, you know, that you have that ability. Does that come from, you know, someone in your family, or did you feel like you inherited somewhere
you
along
know,
the way?
my mom and dad have always been big believers in me, always challenged me. I started my first business when I was 17, and part of the reason I did that because my parents believed in me. They never put a ceiling on me. They always said, you can do it, you can go for it. So I think that was instilled in me. And I don't know, maybe it's that God wiring DNA in me
Yeah.
of being, I just want to encourage people. I believe that people have so much more in them. And kind of our theme is helping people to change their world. And a lot of that has to do how they think, making the right decisions.
Now, one of the things I heard when I was doing research on your book and this program was that you believe that everyone can change the world.
Yeah.
Everyone, and is that you?
I believe that. I've seen it happen with people that may have been at the lowest ebb, bad circumstances, they made bad decisions, but once they started changing their mindset and having more of a growth mindset and starting to apply the principles that we teach over a period of time, their world dramatically changed. And some of it would be quite shocking if I told you how they went from basically homeless to making lots of money and making a difference in the world. So I could give you many examples of that.
That's awesome. I think I believe what you're saying. I think everyone has the potential to change the world in some capacity, big or small. So that's
And it
awesome.
starts with them changing their world first, right?
Yeah.
So how you look at things. When you change your world, then it can change other people's world.
So this book is a fictional adaptation of the program.
Yes.
Is that a fair
Yes.
way to say it?
Well, it took the 8 keys of success
Okay.
and we put it in a story
In
form.
a story form.
Yes.
Okay, story form. And the actual program, it's in schools right now? Are you?
Yes.
Where,
Yeah.
how's it? What have you seen out? What have you seen from that?
Well, we always get great feedback from teachers and students. They always enjoy it. They always ask, when are you doing the next book? When will it become a movie? It's been a very positive thing. But we started out very grassroots. This is a nonprofit. And so we like to think we're national, but we don't have a big budget to work with. So we're slowly but surely getting there. And so that's why we need individuals and corporations to come alongside of us to help us to get these resources in schools.
Okay, that was the next question I was going to ask you. Is how do you get the resources? How can people contribute to this
Yeah.
to making this successful and a part of the education system?
Well, a couple things. One, if you're an individual and you believe in making a difference in young people's lives, you can go to questofthekeys.com and you can become one of our monthly supporters or
Okay.
make a donation. That's one of the ways that we fund our curriculum and all of our resources in schools. And then we have a number of corporate sponsors that write bigger checks that want to believe in the program, support that, and then we provide some value for those corporations as well. We also have businesses can support a specific school that we go in and provide each of the students a book, and we also do a school assembly. So they get to have me come into the school and to do some training and teaching for them as well.
Yeah. Okay. And let me hold on a second.
Yeah.
Okay. That'll give me perfect time to reach for this.
Thanks for joining us. That was great. I needed a voice break. That was perfect.
Drink of water.
I needed a break. I needed a break.
The grand entrance. Okay. All right. Perfect. Let's see. All right.
So on the last question, you were talking about
How people can help.
how people can help and
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
you're also helping them.
Okay.
You want to
Yeah.
address that again?
Yes. Okay. So that brings me to the next point is that how can people help and contribute to getting into the education system?
Yeah. Since we are a nonprofit, it does require people to join in and help us to have the similar passion to help the next generation. So people can go to questofthekeys.com. That's our main website that they can go to, and they can click on the donate button and they can become a monthly supporter. And their support allows us to get students curriculum, books, and we can also go in and do school assemblies. I get to do that in schools as well. If you're a corporation or a business, you can become a corporate sponsor. We have a number of those, and with that, we provide some additional resources for those businesses. I can go in and do some training for them. We also provide some additional online training resources as well. Businesses can actually sign up to support a certain school in the DFW market, okay? That allows to put a book in each of the students' hand, along with curriculum and school assemblies as well.
Okay, and which, you know, it's interesting, you know, statistically, they're saying that there's a big drop in church attendance. And some people would say, you know, that's one of the obstacles that the next generation is facing. What are other obstacles you think, what are obstacles that you believe the next generation faces?
Yeah, again, obviously, that's one of those things. But another would be, I'm seeing a decline in just sociability with students, on how to have a conversation, you know, how to listen well, how to ask good questions. I think because of social media, it's got some good and bad to that, but we tend to isolate ourselves and so forth. So I think teaching students on how to have a conversation, how to be confident in their conversation, it would be a real benefit to them as well. But I think people are lacking meaning in their life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think our resources help really point people toward, you know, what do you believe that's in you that's bigger than yourself? You know, your purpose should be a blessing to the people. It's your gift to the world. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So figuring that out is very powerful. And then rather than spending the next 40 or 50 years working at something you're not passionate about, we really help people to say, what are you passionate about? Find something, do that you're passionate about. My dad's 83 years old. He still works full time. He finished this last year #1 in the world in working for an insurance company. And the reason is because he's still passionate about what he does. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When you're passionate about something, your work never feels like work because you love getting to do that.
Right.
So if you can instill that to young people early on, don't just take a job. Look at this as a calling and a mission that you can make a difference and you love doing it.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, actually, you know. The meaning, especially the meaning portion, which you
Yes.
mentioned, is having meaning in your life, and with meaning you have direction, you have some omnipresence in your life that's
Yes.
you're gravitating towards, and
Yes.
it's pulling you in the direction that you find joy in.
Yes.
So that's fantastic. Okay, the character Declan, right? That's one of
Yes.
the characters. How do you tell me a little bit about that character, just a little bit,
Yeah.
and then tell me how you relate to if it's related to you
Yeah.
or something.
Well, let me tell you, there's a story behind the Declan character, okay? In fact, the Declan character, this was a creative session I had with my son. He helped me come up with this Declan character as far as his name. And that name of Declan was supposed to be my first grandson, okay?
Oh,
but
okay.
that grandson turned into a granddaughter because they got it wrong, okay? So they had already picked the name. It ended up being Jillian, my granddaughter. So we always loved that name, and we've not had a grandson. So we decided to make Declan, the name of my first grandson, the main character of the book. And so it's really, in some ways, you can look at and follow the prodigal son in the Bible, where it talks about, you know, that he strayed, he made some poor decisions, he wanted it now. And in some ways, it's very similar to that he wanted it now. He went out and lived wildly, spent all of his money, and ended up ending in a place a lot worse than he ever imagined. But in some ways, it's the journey of him, you know, being redeemed from those decisions and taking him on a different path as he goes on this quest to discover these 8 keys that will make a difference in his life.
I think that's so cool, you know, mentioning, you know, the redemption part, and then when you go from redemption, you get delivered to a higher calling, a higher existence,
Yes.
and I'm sure that happens in this book
It
also.
does.
Okay, so if someone wants to buy the book and everything that comes with it and the program, where do they go?
So if they want to get the book, probably the best place to go, they can go to Amazon. They can get a Kindle version. They can get the paperback. And we also have a fantastic Audible book that's super well done with all the characters and stuff. So if you prefer listening to a book, Amazon would be your best place. If you want to know more about the program, to get the program going, you can go to questofthekeys.com. There's a form that you can fill out, simple information, and then one of our representatives will contact you personally and talk to you about how you can bring Quest into your school or a home school or charter school, or if you just want to use it at your home.
Okay, and your wife, I was talking to you a few minutes ago, and you told me that she has a like a nighttime book too. Which one's that? Is
Yeah.
it this
So
one right
is
here?
this book, so this is actually called Guardians of Light, and
Okay.
this is what we'd call a prequel, somewhat prequel to Quest of the Keys.
Oh, okay.
But it's, the Guardian of Light is a, you know, it's really geared more toward that kindergartner through second grade probably.
Oh, nice.
Something that you'd read to your kids, or maybe a new reader could do that. So it incorporates the same concepts, but it does it more in a rhyme form, okay? So it's something you can have your kids memorize. And so I don't know, I can't remember exactly how it goes, and I don't want to put myself on the spot.
Yeah.
But it's a great book. It's well done, illustrated. But these four girls, the different names represents my granddaughters, their middle name.
Oh, nice.
And then if you go and study Quest of the Keys, and you look at the map, each of their names is mentioned as a spot in the story. Like, for instance, one of my granddaughters, her name is Kate, so there's a place called Kate's Crossing. There's one of my granddaughters is Claire. There's Claire River and Rose's Rest and Grace's Hollow. Okay?
Nice.
So they're like a prequel to that, but they did something significant to save Leoness, the main city, and so they wanted to remember these girls for saving the city, so they named landmarks, if you will, for doing that.
Oh, very cool.
So,
So
yeah.
it's a journey, and it just you happen to incorporate your
Yes,
grandchildren.
four
everybody?
granddaughters to that.
That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a neat project. My wife was a very prolific children's minister for many years, always a heart for that. She's known as the greatest mom and the greatest grandmother, so this was one of the ways that she could teach these principles that are near and dear to us to a much younger group.
Very
And
cool.
if I can add one other thing to
Yeah,
that.
sure.
Just because what we do is very collaborative. We have a number of team members that pitch in and give us ideas, but we also want to learn from educators, we want to learn from students. And one of the things that we learned from educators is they said, we love Quest of the Keys for middle and high school, but is there something you can do to take these same keys and make it for a younger group? Because sometimes by the time they get in high school, we may have missed them at that point, right?
Right.
So that was a little bit out of the feedback we got from educators of what can we do to maybe target kindergarten, first, second, and third grade. So that was part of the reason behind that.
You looks like you have from kindergarten all the way to high school.
Yes, yes.
Working with. What else do you got working out? You got this going on. What other things should people know about that you do outside of this program?
Okay, well, a couple things related to this is we also have Quest of the Keys, it's called Quest of the Keys Personal Development System. So I've basically taken these keys, I've done 10 videos and a workbook. So if an individual wants to grow in their own leadership, you can be 18 or 88 and you can take and benefit from this. So we make that available. If you become one of our monthly supporters, we'll give that to you free.
Okay.
Because it's an unlimited license, it's valued at $1,200. We give that as a gift so you can use it for your family and your business, however you choose to do that. So that's where I've used that in Fortune 500 companies.
Okay,
So
okay.
just kind of keep that in mind. So
Yeah.
if you're an executive, if you want to be a high-level leader,
Hear that,
you
guys?
can take that and use it with that group. And so that's one of the things. Another thing we're working on is we're working with a company developing a movie project called Quest of the Keys, because we keep hearing that a lot. When will this be a movie? And we've had some other opportunities to pursue that in the past, but we worked out an arrangement that we can keep the rights and control it, because one of the things we're concerned, if we sold the rights, we would lose control, and it could end up being a movie that would not fit into what we value and feel like it's important. Now, more will come of that, but we continue to work on that. We're working with writers right now. We're working with a producer to develop that out. And that may be a year or two or three before it materializes, but it's something in the works. And then I do international leadership consulting with leaders. Literally, I've got a Skype session with a guy in Wales next week, someone in Thailand in 2 or 3 weeks from now. So I work with different strategic leaders. I wouldn't say all over the world, but in a lot of different places. I love developing leaders so I can coach them and help them and provide resources for them as well.